How did Kristen Welker's interview with Donald Trump on NBC's Meet the Press go from this
President Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
to this?
That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid.
I don't know how many interviews Trump has given as president. It's almost certainly in the hundreds. But the interview he just gave on Friday, airing this past Sunday, where he became so wound up that he walked out.
You're
President,
one-sided, crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits, because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
It's a useful case study in all of the ways Trump does not play by the usual rules.
well, how do you define it?
I don't define it at all. I don't think about it. I just do what I have to do.
And every so often, it creates just enough dissonance and friction that you end up with this.
You ought to straighten out your press, because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be
We
great
traveled
with a dishonest
listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
In any interview, the unwritten contract, the understanding, is generally meant to be that the journalist asks questions that are informed and fair, and the person responding stays on topic and answers directly. It's a bit like a dance, where you have one partner who leads and the other person does their best to follow that lead in good faith. But Trump sometimes turns his interviews into more of a fencing match, where questions aren't so much received as they are parried.
Your Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said that the war had concluded. And yet just this week, Iran attacked U.S. allies in the region, calling it retaliation for a set of U.S. airstrikes. Is the United States at war with Iran?
Well, they've been largely decapitated.
Okay, so the question, Marco Rubio says the war is over, but the war doesn't seem to be over. Do you think it's over? To which Trump replies, well, Iran has been largely decapitated. Basically, we've crushed them, which is a sidestep, really, avoiding the question about whether this is war and swerving to one about whether whatever this is successful. In Trump's view, it has been. Then he dodges the same question in a slightly different way.
Well, they've been largely decapitated, and I call it a military exercise because people would rather have it called that. It's not a big war for us. It's not. We have the most powerful military in the world. I built it, frankly.
So now he's disputing the premise of the question. What is war, even? A military exercise? Either way, not a big war. And by the way, that military has my name written all over it. So now, as an interviewer, you're in a really sticky spot, because do you roll things back and try to chase the original question about whether the US is currently at war with Iran, or do you pursue any or all of these new lines about defining war, or whether this is a big war, or whether Trump is entitled to wage war?
A conflict, but not a war. He really does seem to think that there's some sort of special dispensation he gets if he avoids using the word war to describe what's going on.
And as the exchange goes on, we can start to see how Trump's tactic here is to not really accept the spirit of the question at all. The interviewer keeps pressing.
There is a naval blockade in place,
Yeah.
which technically is an act of war under international law. So is this a war as long as there's a naval blockade in place?
Well, we have a blockade. It's been extremely effective, and the reason we have it is they try to blockade, and now we blockaded them.
Again, it's answering every question but the one being asked. Is this a war? Well, it's a blockade, a really good one. And by the way, you want to know why we're doing it? Because they blocked us first, and we're just blocking their block.
I don't consider that a war, but if you want to define it as such, I guess you can.
Well, how do you define it?
I don't define it at all. I don't think about it. I just do what I have to do.
Which really summarizes one way in which it can be really difficult to interview Trump, because he understands you can skirt the entire conversation about the merits of war and the responsibilities of war if you just reject the underlying framework. If you spend all your time instead asking, what is war? Who said there's a war even going on right now?
She was having trouble getting him to even agree to the facts, and I think fundamentally that is one of the major issues with the president.
But so are you saying you would consider sending some of the troops home, sir? Some of the 50,000 troops who were sent there as a part of Operation Epic Fury?
This, it costs us very little to keep them there. I don't consider them in danger.
Again, avoiding the question about bringing U.S. troops home, turning it instead into a question about why it makes sense to keep them there. And this is a great example of two other ways Trump manages to completely defuse a very fact-based question by twisting it like a pretzel into whatever he wants it to be. So there's this thing that happens in even the most rock solid of relationships, where one person might ask the other, hey, it's garbage day tomorrow. Did you take out the trash yet? To which the other person replies, maybe a bit defensively, do you have any idea how busy I've been today? Does that sound familiar? The challenge here, of course, is that the first person is asking a yes or no question. The second person, however, maybe, jumps the gun, interpreting the question as an attack. Because maybe what the first person really meant to ask was, shouldn't you have taken the trash out by now?
Mr. President, I wonder, how long are you willing to give Iran to make a deal? How much longer? You've been talking for quite some time.
Well, you really haven't. You were in Vietnam for 19 years. You were in Iraq for many years. You were in Korea for many, many years. You were in all the, I won't even talk about World War II.
What Trump is doing here is three things. First, he's not answering the question. How long are you willing to give Iran to make a deal? Second, he's instead choosing to interpret the question as, why haven't you already made a deal? Then, third, he's turning a question about clarity on U.S. policy into a debate about worldviews, about whether, no matter the answer to Kristen Welker's question, there's any fault to be found here at all.
He doesn't deal well with being challenged, and his response to those challenges usually is to retreat to his preferred talking points.
But do you have a cutoff point in your head?
No, but you keep talking about speed, Kristen. You were in Vietnam for 19 years, and you tell me about 3 months. And in 3 months, I've demolished the Navy, the Air Force, anti-aircraft. They have no radar. They have no nothing.
And he does this again and again. It doesn't really matter what the issue is. Watch him interpret this specific question about farmers as an attack on how his administration supports farmers.
Let me ask you, what is your message to farmers, many who support you, but who say they're struggling,
because there's nobody been better to farmers. You know, I gave farmers last term $28 billion because China took advantage and other people.
And it doesn't matter how directly the question is re-asked.
What's your message to farmers, though, Mr. President, who say they are struggling, they're struggling to make ends meet?
Are you ready? Am I allowed to talk? You keep asking questions and you don't listen to the answers. I love the farmers, and the farmers love me, and the farmers trust me.
Trump is basically refusing to play this game at all, refusing to send farmers any message, because he would rather debate the broader question of whether he loves farmers and whether they love him.
She avoided being distracted by his tossed comments, by his red herrings, the things that he was tossing out, in a combative way, trying to throw her off her questions. She wasn't succumbing to the temptation of entering into a sparring match, because an interview is not a sparring match.
But I think what ultimately makes interviewing Trump so difficult is that he doesn't really stick to the field of play. He'll go low if he needs to.
Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC, and CBS, and CNN.
One of the most effective ways Trump has undermined the mainstream news media is to realize that you can counteract bad press by calling the press bad.
Because as you know, in the last term, we were a dead country, Kristen. I know you're a big liberal, or a big progressive.
No, I'm just a journalist.
We were a dead country.
When challenged, Trump doesn't only fight back by arguing about the subject matter. He often argues about the interviewer, insisting that the questions lack credibility, or that fact-checking him is proof of wanting to attack him. There's this exchange towards the end of the interview where Trump is attacking the Justice Department for treating January 6th rioters unfairly.
What they did to the lives of people, they destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
All right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying, but let
There's
me
a lot
ask you
of
about
evidence.
Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk
There's
about Todd
tremendous
Blanche.
evidence. There's nothing
What's
but
not been
evidence. The
presented
election
in a
was
court of
rigged.
law.
It was a dirty election.
And this literally goes back and forth for like a full minute and a half, where he's making claims about the current California primary being rigged.
Mr.
And it's
President,
happening again right now
you've
in
never
California.
presented evidence
It's happening
that the
right
2020
now in
election
California.
was rigged.
Right now, look at what's
Where's
happening
the
in
evidence
California.
to that?
Now, spoiler alert, Trump doesn't have any evidence to give. And Trump's very old and debunked claim about the 2020 election that his California claim is piggybacking on has been litigated again and again across multiple states, and the issue studied endlessly, ultimately falling short in court repeatedly. But suffice to say, there's a point at which it becomes clear Trump's path here only starts at talking over the interviewer. He's also going to insult her.
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the
They're crooked.
votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands. then.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid.
Let's
you play
continue.
right into their hands with this crap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged.
And reporters have had to learn how to keep their cool and keep it professional, even if the president of the United States will not.
Why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let him in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person?
Quiet.
No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile.
But look, one thing I should say is that Trump maybe is one of the most scrutinized presidents alive. And to his credit, he does regularly accept these opportunities to speak with the very media who are harshest on him. Apparently, he's already agreed to speak to Welker on Meet the Press again sometime in the future. He rarely refuses to answer a question outright, but instead, he'll often answer a different, much easier question than the one the interviewer asked. A question of his own making, in his own head. And the challenge then for the journalist is that every follow-up almost becomes a negotiation to get back to the original question. In any interview with Trump, there is no guarantee that the conversation will stay on topic, that any evidence will be presented, that the interviewer will be allowed to fully steer the conversation, or even that they'll not become a target themselves. Trump feels very at ease, changing the subject, disputing the questions themselves, attacking the interviewer, and frankly, speaking past them sometimes. Because Trump is keenly aware there are more than just two people in any interview. There are many millions, a whole audience watching every word.